The Temple of Artemis at Sardis was the fourth largest Ionic temple in the ancient world. Construction began around 334 BC, soon after Alexander the Great liberated Sardis from the Persians. The temple was renovated under the Romans in the 2nd century DC, at which time it appears to have also served as a temple to the imperial cult. Artemis was the main goddess of the city, and the temple dedicated to her in Sardis was one of the 7 largest Greek temples. Artemis, known as Diana by the Romans, was the daughter of Zeus and twin of Apollo. She was the goddess of the hunt, the moon, and fertility. The Emperor Theodosius ordered the closing of pagan temples in the 390s. While the Temple of Artemis probably passed out of active use at this time, its massive walls and imposing columns continued to dominate the area. The decline of the cult of Artemis is poorly understood. From the 7th century onwards, the building fell into disrepair, and many of its stones were reused or burned for lime. The small brick and rubble building, located near the southeast corner of the Temple of Artemis, is known as Church M. The structure was probably set up in the later 4th century, after the temple cult had been abandoned, and was used as a place of Christian worship to the early 600s. The well-preserved structure was discovered in 1911 and cleared the following year. The construction of a small church or chapel within the yard of a classical temple reflects the spread of Christianity. The small church was built in the 5th century AD, and crosses and Christian slogans were incised on the east doorway of the temple. Sardis has been the name of the settlement here for more than 3,000 years. The earliest known occupation dates from the late Bronze Age, but Sardis mainly flourished between the 7th century BC and the 7th century AD. Located on a natural route from the Aegean coast to central Anatolia, the city was favored with an abundance of fertile land. When Anatolia was conquered by the Persians in about 147 BC, Sardis became the seat of the governor and the important Persian administrative center in western Anatolia. In Roman times, from the 1st to 4th century AD, it was a Greco-Roman metropolis with civic amenities such as public baths and a stadium. Its final phase as a great city was in the late Roman period, 4th to 7th century AD, and many prominent ruins of the site date from that era. During the Persian period, Sardis was the endpoint of a royal road leading to Susa in Iran, 2,400 kilometers away. This road, with 111 stages or rest stops set about 22 kilometers apart, was part of a network of Persian roads that bound the empire together and impressed Greek historians such as Herodotus. During the period of Persian control of Sardis, Much of the city within the Lydia's walls was abandoned, and habitation moved outside the ancient urban core to small settlements along the Pactolus stream. In the Imperial Roman era, 1st through 5th centuries AD, a monumental avenue was built over the Lydian road. During this era of peace and prosperity, Sardis did not need fortifications, and the builders cut away the ancient Lydian wall, leaving only the lowest few courses. The new road was 30 meters wide, flanked by porticos, shops, and workshops. A large complex built in the center of the lower city in the 2nd century AD included a gymnasium and a bathhouse. The complex was over 5 acres, 2 hectares in size, and its western part was characterized by large vaulted halls for bathing. The eastern part was a palaestra, a large open courtyard for exercise. Thereafter, the settlement diminished in size and population, and by the 18th and 19th centuries was reduced to 1 or 2 small hamlets. The modern town of Sardis grew up after the War of Independence in 1919 to 1922. The synagogue of Sardis is notable for its size and location. In size, it is one of the largest ancient synagogues excavated. In location, it is found in the center of the urban center instead of on the periphery as synagogues typically were. This attests to the strength and wealth of the Jewish community in the city. This synagogue came into use in the 3rd century AD.
Christ's letter to Sardis. Write the following to the messenger of the congregation in Sardis. For these are the words of the one who holds the 7 spirits of God and 7 stars. I know all that you do, and I know that you have a reputation for being really alive, but you are actually dead. Wake up and strengthen all that remains before it dies, for I haven't found your works to be perfect in the sight of my God. So remember all the things you have received and heard, then turn back to God and obey them. For if you continue to slumber, I will come to you like a thief, and you will have no idea at what hour I will come. Yet there are still a few in Sardis who have remained pure, and they will walk in fellowship with me in brilliant light, for they are worthy. And the one who experiences victory will be dressed in white robes, and I will never, no, never erase your name from the book of life. I will acknowledge your name before my Father and his angels. So the one whose heart is open, let him listen carefully to what the Spirit is now saying to all the churches.